Answers of an Alien from Andromeda, Video 155, May, 2018. Friends, I know you charge C before the contacts and sometimes you get stressed because we have a lack of time sometimes. We have exchanged brief words a few times, but to speak of other points that did not answer these questions. No one is the cause of these delays, only the accumulation of labor to which our fleets have been subjected. We have been assisting other colonies at the request of the CG, and this sometimes prevents me from talking to you more assiduously. We are enthusiastic about the implantation of new colonies in this quadrant of the galaxy, which makes this regional CG increasingly important in its performance. 5 more colonies are being deployed in systems close to this, and soon there will be plenty of movement in this region. With you through the level 1 will be one more race to be able to help in this great endeavor. Questions. Mythi, what opens information about past lives for people after head injuries? It isn't a development. It's only trauma. We must call this phenomenon a system error, mustn't we? Maxid, in your culture they say that for one thing to work sometimes a good stride resolves. This is more or less what happens. According to the type of trauma, some drawers open momentarily in an involuntary process, and coincidentally they can be stored their information that may leak for a while until the drawer closes again. The more developed a breed, the more drawers can be opened spontaneously, without the need for stride. Hi Mythi, can you tell us about interactions between the ancient Egyptian and Atlantis societies and how they may be interacting with our society now and their relationship with the Dracos? Thank you. Thomas, the interactions of Atlantis after Sumerians and Vedas was great, particularly on the European continent, because at the time every great culture eventually influenced others with their knowledge and legacies. Reminiscences of these cultures have affected your cultures to the present day, having laid deep roots throughout the Old World. The Atlantis were also present in the Americas with cities in Central America and influenced Mayans, Incas and Aztecs. At certain times they were visited by Atunes, Pleiadians and by some reptilian races that insisted on installing colonies here. If with the term Dracos you refer to reptilians, yes, there were interactions and exchange of gifts. As I have explained before, what you call the constellation of Draco has nothing to do with these reptilians of the past. Mythi, the planet Phaeton location presumably between Mars and Jupiter 12,000 years ago, was in the solar system or was it not? If it was where its orbit passed, how many satellites were at Phaeton, and why did it fly to pieces? German, the asteroid belt you refer to is not 12,000 years old, but approximately 150 million years old. It formed after a catastrophic collision between a large moon orbiting the planet Jupiter and one of the planets of the Nibiru system during one of its orbital crossings of your solar system. This planet that you refer to as Phaeton between Jupiter and Mars did not exist according to our records. Mythi, I have been listening to solfeggio frequency recordings that claim 528 Hz repairs listeners' DNA, and 432 Hz heals listeners' mental illness. Is this true? 528 Hz repairs DNA and brings positive transformation? See Jerry, the frequencies that are within the receptive range of the tympani and adjacent tissues have no practical utility to change anything that really needs changes in the quantum form to be changed. It is not real the assertion that frequencies can alter DNA or make nerve repairs of any nature. Vibrational frequency bands that induce cellular surface stresses to perform some predetermined or required physical restoration are at another level and at other wavelengths that will be manipulated with a range of quantum variations that will cause the expected responses to obtaining the necessary result. Mythi, can you give us an update on ghost cities and the aliens that are supposed to inhabit them? JB, some agreements have been made almost unilaterally by some of your governments, with races that they invited to settle on the planet to symbolize the reunion of ancestral races. These races have bases in Tibet and Nepal for thousands of years. They are cultures that brought the various Eastern races to this planet. The cities were built as gifts that these governments are waiting to be accepted as soon as the opening of contact between races is authorized by the CG. Mythy, we have yet another roaming rogue planet we call CFBDSIRJ 214947.2-040308.9. Might this be one of the planets being towed in as a heavyweight, since our astronomers are saying it is larger than Jupiter? No, Tammy, this is one of the many wandering planets, the result of the weakening of its suns or black holes that causes the escape of the orbit at the critical point. There are also millions of other wandering planets also resulting from collisions between suns or galaxies. This planet that you mention is a long way from your system. There is no possibility of influencing the orbital balance in this sector. Mythy, the radio signal sent in 1974 describing our planet was sent by Earthmen into space. 27 years later, in 2001, a rectangular figure and a portrait with a human face appeared in England. Mythy, what did people get in return? What do you know about this case? Why do most crop circles appear in England? Can you tell what is said in these pictures, who are the faces, and what is the meaning of the messages? Angela and Belinda, the radio signals sent by you in these attempts could hardly be picked up or deciphered by anyone there. If you had any idea how many random signals and noises in all the frequency bands circulating through the galaxies would understand why I say that. There are specific signals between civilizations, ships, and CG portals that are captured by all those working or circulating in the regions, but there are no tapping for signals that are not catalogued in systems, and each race tends to take care of its own business. These crop circles have no relation to your transmission. English plantation fields are widely used because they are geometrically well distributed, flat and mechanized, providing excellent drawing boards, in addition to being in a location where these drawings can be easily seen and analyzed by your cultural centers of the so-called Old World. The message advises you to be well aware of the misconceptions imposed on you about other races and the nature of what exists outside here, so as not to rely on false promises and offerings, and the contact between races is near. This table summarizes the major differences in the original formation of the humanoid races, between greys and terrains, since greys also contain a type of biological silicone in their natural physical composition. Mythy, can transplanted organs transfer memories to recipients? If so, how? Julian, no, organs or tissues do not transfer memories. Even if there is cell acceptance of different DNA or genome, these are restricted to the transplanted organ and do not interfere with the dynamics of the recipient body. If the recipient has access to the personal data of the donor, can be induced by their own conscience to imagine having memories attached to that donor. If you know it was from a child, a soldier, a sportsman, a person of the opposite sex, all this will generate artificial memories depending on the suggestibility of the recipient in question. Mythy, some are saying that they talk to you too. Is this a fact, or do you just talk to CB? Carlos, I would love to talk to everyone, even give you the opportunity to answer the questions that are chosen by most of you, but I started this work as an anthropologist-sociologist out of curiosity and ended up getting more involved as an older friend of this group. After almost suffering some sansos, I obtained an approval indicated by other social analysts of base Antarctica to continue this unique contact for didactic and informative ends, as long as it does not go against other CG guidelines. I communicate with CB only. Any other communication falls far short of what was licensed for this analytical contact. Mythy, why is sex and sexual desire so much a part of the human experience? Is it related to freedom and creativity aside from procreation? How does an orgasm affect the chakras, and how is sexual energy related to Kundalini? See, Michael, as people says, every action causes a reaction. That, in spite of saying contrary, in the biological case this is not an imperative rule. Sexual desire is a stimulus, which in the case of rational beings can be directed to the pleasure inherent in the reproductive act, even though this fact is not happening in practice. The acceleration of localized circulation is manifested in men and women during sex, coupled with an entire biochemical process involving nerves and hormones, causes static electricity flows that accumulate and discharge through the bundles of nerves as the phases of pleasure reach a point where this accumulated bioelectric excitation reaches its limit of containment and completely discharges into the nervous bundle, causing the orgasm or climax of the pleasure of reproduction. In reality, the points that you call the chakras pertinent to that path by the spinal cord are awakened during the process. The external stimulus will work well if the inmate of the couple has a good hormonal balance to cause the interaction between external and internal. Hello Mithy, could you speak about or give insight to the reason why we have varying brainwaves, apart from what our science tells us? Some examples would be like highly active brainwaves such as gamma waves, compared to that of slow shallow brainwaves such as delta waves. Thank you in advance. Jair, the frequency bands you can measure are compatible with the instruments you have at your disposal today. You would need a spectrum analyzer in the quantum range to be able to see how the brain waves literally intertwine and interact. The final interaction of quantum interactions is the source that generates the measurable frequencies for you, that is, a 4D interface to a 3D. The variations you can measure depend on what the brain is focused on or what tasks its owner is performing. You only see the effect and not the actual cause that causes the events. Mithy, can you talk about Pharaoh Akhenaten and his queen Nefertiti of Egypt, please? Most of their life story was deliberately erased from history. The art pieces, which has survived to this day, depict the royal family in a bizarre way. It looks like the whole family including children had elongated skulls. There is a theory that they were not Earthlings but a half-breed with some alien race. Thank you. Tanya, if you pay attention you will find that none of the Egyptian leaders was a normal humanoid on your planet. Royal families only reproduced with representatives of their mother races. I figured this was already known to all of you, but if it was not, it is now. They were a very specific race that, unlike others, adopted this type of tradition. By this type of connection the pharaohs could communicate with the gods while the rest of the people did not. Hence came the worship and respect for their royal lineages. Mithy, they are supposed to have been taken in 1972 as mugshots of two Pleiadians, a mother and her child, that had come from New Lyra, orbiting the star Atlas in the Pleiades. Are they genuine and can you say anything about this race? Georgie, by the traces of these people could be Pleiadians, as many of you descend from Pleiadians even without knowing it. We do not have records of specific people of all races, but I contend that if they were Pleiadians from any of the colonies outside the Earth they would have been automatically rescued and would not be exposed in these photographs. Dear Mithy, if I remember correctly you said that the Community Galactica database doesn't know how big our universe is, and that so far you have explored only 1/5 of the known universe. In the known universe you were referring to, how many Laniakea superclusters could be fitted in? Benedetto, this question was interesting to give you an idea of the immensity of this universe. The United System of Galactic Communities covers only or already 8% of the galactic grouping called by you as Laniakea. This roughly represents the union of 9,200 galaxies, which represents 1/5 of the universe currently explored. As you can see, there is still much to explore in just one Laniakea superclusters. Mithy, according to the records of the CG, where were the 3 previous North Poles? Through what periods of time or in what years did these shifts take place? What natural disasters occurred during the last pole shifts? Pavel, speaking of geographic pole shift, if I understood the question, was as follows: North Pole Sahara Desert and south in the Central Pacific Ocean 270,000 years ago. North Pole Northeast Brazil and South Pole in Australia 620,000 years ago. North Pole southwest of the North American continent and South Pole in the Indian Ocean 890,000 years ago. Each time these changes occurred, partially accompanying the change of the magnetic poles, the planet's crust increased in size, causing significant changes in tectonic plates, swallowing parts and emerging others, altering the position of the oceans and creating new volcanic zones. As you can imagine, The concept of natural disasters does not have much connotation in those times. It would be more interesting to call events as natural changes of the planet. Mythi. In 1570 Konrad Haas, Russian-born Transylvanian Saxon military engineer, wrote a 450 pages long manuscript, known today as Sibiu manuscript Sibiu, Romania, where he describes in great detail technical data regarding multi-stage rockets, artillery, ballistics and even possible spacecrafts, plus perfect sketches were added. He claims that in year 1555 in Sibiu, Romania, was launched a multi-stage rocket in front of thousands of eyewitnesses. Who was this man? Perhaps an extraterrestrial missioner? And if yes, then why was he sent during the Middle Ages? Why this rocket was launched in 1555, why in Sibiu? Toter. This engineer either had these ideas on his own or got the idea of Chinese manuscripts, at least 1,000 years older. Staged rockets have been manufactured in China for over 1,000 years, including different colors at each stage for commemorative purposes. This idea and drawings similar to these can be found in Chinese manuscripts in your museums without problems. Friends, I sincerely hope to be back available for you in a few weeks or before that if there is a pressing need. Stay tuned for the central regions and islands north of the Pacific, including Japan. Some steps are being taken, but there may be unexpected activities in the region. I hope you all stay well and we will be here.